Welcome to Inside Design with Kandrac and Kole, hosted by two nationally published Atlanta interior designers, Joanne Kandrac and Kelly Kole. These energetic women are also world travelers, charity givers, and bloggers with a wealth of information to share and stories to tell about the interior design world. Okay, now just a warning, this is going to be fun and not too serious. After all, they still do have an interior design business running at full speed.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 133 of Inside Design with Kandrac and Kole. And today we are talking with entrepreneur, educator, and public speaker, David Thurston. He is a really cool dude, you guys. And unless you're in the hair care industry, you might not recognize his name. But after this podcast, you'll be psyched to learn more about him. So David was the keynote speaker at the Cosentino CNEX Global Design Summit that we attended back in February at the Nizuc Hotel in Cancun. You guys may remember when we were chatting about that event, we talked about David, and Joanne made me shut up and stop talking about him because he was coming on. So it was at that event that for one full hour, we were riveted to our seats while he told the story of his journey as the founder and CEO of Pulp Riot, a professional hair color line that sold in 33 countries, and that he eventually sold to L'Oreal in a multi-million-dollar deal. So during that keynote speech, David also shared some of his business philosophies as an entrepreneur that have really stuck with us, and we still talk about them all these months later, and we wanted to share his insights with you today.
Okay, so before we jump into our chat with David, we want to thank Cosentino for being the sponsor of this episode. If you're a designer or a homeowner, you need to have Cosentino on your radar as your first choice for quartz products for countertops and other items. Cosentino is the maker of Silestone, which is a hybrid surface of premium minerals, quartz, and recycled materials. I think they were one of the first people that did quartz. They were way ahead of the curve.
Yep.
So Decton is Cosentino's innovative ultra-compact surface. It's a technological material. It's composed of raw materials, porcelain and glass. It's perfect in both home, hospitality, and outdoor projects because of its amazing strength and versatility. You'll find Silestone in millions of homes in over 100 countries and in most Kandrac & Kole products. They also sell at Home Depot.
Oh, yeah, true.
We always turn to Cosentino for their innovation and commitment to sustainability. You can visit them at Cosentino, COSENTINO.com to learn more about their product and their new city centers, which we're lucky to have one here in Atlanta. It's an exclusive meeting place for professionals who seek to share ideas, stay ahead of market trends, and to take part in innovative experiences and activities.
Well, all the housekeeping taken care of. Welcome, David, to our show.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. It feels like it's been so long since that day in Mexico when I was seated at a table and fortunate enough to be seated right next to you two. And we talked about the podcast back then, and here we are many, many months later, and we're doing it.
Yeah, we scammed ourselves into dinner after the event with David, with our friends Carrie, Kelly, and her husband Vinny. We're like, "Oh, you're going for sushi? Okay, we're coming too. Oh, David's coming? Oh, great. Can I sit next to him?"
It honestly was one of the highlights of my year. I really got to enjoy spending time with you two.
Oh,
it
thanks.
was really, really fun.
So I want to dive in because there's so much to talk about, and just to give everybody a little background. So what I find so amazing is from the time you started Pulp Riot with your hairstylist wife and business partner, Alexis, who we got to meet and who's awesome, to the time you actually sold it to L'Oreal for multi-millions was only 23 months. But your journey to that moment was almost a decade, right?
Totally. It was a rocket ship for sure. But what people often don't see is all the prep work that happened before. Essentially, what I was able to do is create a brand before ever launching a product. And most people do it in reverse. They create this product and they think, okay, what's the brand going to be? I think that was one of the main reasons we were propelled so quickly through space.
So that was a concerted effort. You knew that this is how you wanted to do it.
I wouldn't say that it was a concerted effort. I think life is interesting. It's like climbing a spiral staircase. You can see one or two steps in front of you, but you can't exactly see where it's going. But when you look back down the staircase, I could see, oh yes, this led to this, and this led to this, and this put me in the position to be here. But while you're in it, it's not necessarily the case you know exactly where it's going.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, you talk about that spiral staircase. So go ahead and give us a little bit of that, of what you talked about in Mexico, because I was fascinated by it and I could totally relate to it.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I have to say that, David, I listened to, you sent us the audio of your hour-long keynote. I listened to it 3 times yesterday. And I was like, oh my God, like I can relate to every single lesson of the 15 steps you talk about in the spiraling staircase of success. And I need you to I know we can't talk about all 15, but maybe just as you've traveled around the world now and you're still working with entrepreneurs, like, are there some of the 15 that you talk about more than others, or that people relate to more, or more that relate to that you feel strongly about?
Sure. It's going back to the spiral staircase. I think all of our journeys are a little that way. I know mine is. The rules of the spiral staircase to me is, number one, it's always challenging to take a step upward, because when you do, you leave your comfort zone behind and you're entering a new place that's not comfortable for you. But rule number 2 is what most people never learn, and that is that those feelings of uncomfortableness are temporary. They go away, maybe in 60 days. But yet people are not climbing because they're that fear of being outside their comfort zone, and they don't understand that that's going to become their new comfort zone very soon, and then they could go ahead and take the next step. And I'm fascinated because I think everybody wants to be successful, but why are there people that aren't climbing? And I feel like there's these things that are holding them back, and I've identified them as, 1, not wanting to step outside their comfort zone. 2 is everybody seems to be waiting for just the right perfect time to come along. 3 is that some people just don't know how to do something. They might have a good idea, but they don't know how to do it, and that's just a non-starter for them. And then 4 is probably the one that most people are guilty of. The reason they don't take a step is that they're living in a fantasy world. And what I mean by that is that they, first of all, haven't decided what they want. And I think that successful people actually make a wish list of, these are the things I want, all the way from, this is the car I want to drive, this is the kind of house I want to live in, this is the legacy I want to leave behind. And then once you make the wish list, you have to ask yourself the mother of all questions. And the mother of all questions is what I'm doing right now going to get me the things on that wish list? And it seems so simple, but we don't do it. We distract ourselves so often by just staying busy. It gives us that fleeting moment of feeling like you accomplished something, but you're not really going after those things on your wish list. So I'm on the road a lot, giving keynote presentations, and I'm writing a book, and it's all about helping people, see reality. Where are they? What do they want? Is it going to get them there? And if not, make that change so they could get on the right spiral staircase to success.
So what was on your wish list when you started out?
Well, I'm pretty ambitious. From the small monetary things, I wanted an Audi R8 sports car.
Awesome.
I used to commute to work in a Nissan Altima, and I used to ride from time to time a little bit lower, and I'd look at my hands on the steering wheel and imagine me driving that car, and I would drive by a particular home that I really liked. It felt like it was something that I would build, and I thought, that's what I want. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make an impact on people, and I wanted to leave an impact on the world. Mm-hmm. Those are some of the things on my wish list. And I was working this corporate job in San Francisco, and I could see that the pathway that I was on wasn't going to get me those things on my wish list. I could look at senior management and see the lifestyles that they had and realize that if I kept doing what I was doing, I wouldn't get the things on the wish list. And so eventually you have to make the change, and you can't wait for the right time to come along, because it doesn't come along. It requires you to commit to something, and then people come out of the woodwork to help you get what you want. Circumstances arise that you couldn't have foreseen coming, and it gets the commitment cycle in motion.
So when were you your most uncomfortable?
Oh, well, I a lot, and I love being uncomfortable now.
Yeah.
It's a muscle you exercise. In fact, someone recently asked me, where's my most favorite place I ever traveled? And I answered Hanoi, Vietnam. And the reason why I loved it there is because nothing made sense. I was completely out of my comfort zone. How do I get money out of this ATM? Is that a bank or a hospital? How am I supposed to cross the street? all these things, it's a muscle you exercise. And I think people who are really successful exercise it enough that they're somewhat comfortable being uncomfortable, or at least it's like an old feeling that you experience. You're like, I remember this.
It really gets the adrenaline pumping. I mean, Joanne and I talk about this all the time, that if you give us a project that scares the doo-doo out of us, we have to do it because we just have to, right?
Yep.
And then we look back, like we just recently got a project, and I said to Joanne, I said, you know what? This project would have normally scared me to death, but because we did that other one, that commercial rooftop on top of a parking garage that scared the crap out of us, because we did that, I feel like we can do this. I have to keep reminding us though, that we did that and how scared we were.
Can you go back just a little bit?
Sure.
Because just go ahead, tell us about your corporate job and just those next few steps, so people have an idea how you became, how you started. You went to UCLA, worked in an office, and then how you ended up becoming what Pulp Riot came to be.
Yeah, well, I worked in the office. I was unsatisfied. I'm a right brain creative individual. It was a left brain analytical job. I eventually decided that I was going to move on from that industry and create a hair product company with my friend named Ted. And he was an entrepreneur, and he brought me on as a partner to leave my education behind, to leave everything I was building. I was climbing the corporate ladder and begin my life as an entrepreneur, creating a hair product company. Fast forward 8 full years, and that company failed. And failing is very, very challenging. And on podcasts, people always say failing is part of success, but nobody ever talks about how much it sucks. And it did. But in the end, when I look back, that journey up the spiral staircase, while creating that product line, I learned how to manufacture product. I learned how to raise money. I learned how to work with QuickBooks. I learned how to design brochures. I learned how to be an educator, etc. And I'm sure you can see that really served me well later on. That's the idea of the spiral staircase, is you continually accumulate connections, knowledge, and skills that you get to use later on to try to defeat Goliath. So after failing, I humbled myself and took a job managing my friend's hair salon, earning $24,000 a year, a graduate of UCLA, managing a hair salon, $24,000 a year. I definitely felt like I was a failure. I looked around and I saw a lot of friends who I felt like I was as talented as, but success definitely eluded me. But guess what? I learned while working in that salon motivations of hairstylists, what their fears are. These are things that are going to serve me well later on in my journey. And I also learned that I'm really good at managing a hair salon. So I eventually decided I was going to open my own hair salon called Butterfly Loft in Los Angeles. And there I built this brand on social media. And I thought I was just going to build a brand and advertise to the people in Los Angeles who would come into my salon. But pretty soon I found out that I was educating, inspiring, and creating trends with my cell phone and Instagram. And that obviously served me well, because when I launched my hair product company, Pulp Riot, everybody in the beauty industry knew who I was. They knew what my brand was, what I stood for. And so that whole journey, all the things that I accumulated, is the reason why I launched a product company with my cell phone, with no sales rep, distributor, or money spent on advertising. And 23 months later, we sold it to the biggest beauty brand in the world, L'Oreal.
It's totally amazing. It's just totally amazing.
And like this, the staircase to me is kind of like the seeds, the little seeds you're planting, and nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden it all happens, and then everything clicks. So if you had never really worked at that salon, you wouldn't have learned the skills that you had to go forward with this.
So that's the tragedy.
So the failure was a success.
I hate to say it, but I'm in the camp of now saying that failing is part of success. And the tragedy would have been if I would have never climbed. And that's where a lot of people are. They don't realize that if they start taking those little steps, where it could lead. Imagine that. I met my wife through that journey. I have stepchildren that I wouldn't have had if I didn't take the steps. All the people who manufactured our products, that contributed to their livelihood, the people who were out educating, all the distributors, all the impact that eventually those steps made on people, including the fact that you and I wouldn't have met if it wasn't for taking those steps. The tragedy would have been if that didn't happen and I continued to stay on that step and work that corporate job in San Francisco. And so many people are doing just that. They're waiting for that perfect time to come along before they make the jump, and then life just kind of goes by. And so that's what I try to do, is motivate people like myself to take that step.
Well, you don't have to be doing that. I mean, you could just have ridden off into the sunset and just enjoyed your life. But I love that you're giving back and speaking to people, because there are so many people who just need that little push. And so, right, it's like you want to take people and kind of shake them and go, just take the step. How bad could it be? Like, and then, like you said, I guess the more you do it, the more, more comfortable you get.
Right.
And then you could have done something else and failed at it, but eventually, if you keep moving and keep trying, you're going to succeed somewhere, don't you think?
Absolutely. And you brought up a point. I could have ridden off into the sunset and sat on a beach the rest of my days after selling the company. But the truth is that as you're climbing the staircase, you are hungry. You're hungry to prove to yourself that you can do something big. You're hungry to make a name for yourself amongst others in your industry. And you're hungry because you're hungry. You're trying to pay your bills and you need food to eat, etc. And then what happens when all those things go away? All of a sudden you're not hungry anymore. And so I look at it as, what's going to bring my life meaning? Where's the challenge? What can I do to continue to stay hungry? And for me, that's really helping others to recognize that they are on their own spiral staircase, and just encourage them to take the step into that comfort zone, the zone that's not comfortable, because in 60 days it will be comfortable.
I am a big believer in karma, and the universe has its energy. And it's so bizarre, because I was just having a sit down with my daughter Riley, with my husband Mike, just 2 days ago, and she's in Atlanta. She's a graphic designer. She's preparing to move to San Diego at the end of the year with her boyfriend, kind of on a 1-year journey. Just, they're going to go out, they're going to explore, they're going to hit California because they've always wanted to, and they're going for it. And she was kind of having a meltdown of, I'm scared, I can't do it. And it's a lot. They're only 25, and they've got to figure out jobs and how to live there, and it's expensive and all that. And I had just that afternoon been listening to your audio of your keynote, and I said, Riley, I'm just going to send you something, and you need to go up into your room and you need to listen to it for the next hour. And it's all you need to just get out from under the sheets and get off your ass and get yourself to California. And it really, it's what she needed to hear. And I just appreciated all your words of wisdom.
Good for them. I applaud them. Those are the things that make your life fierce. You become more powerful because of those experiences, and you just have no idea what's going to enter your life that's going to have an impact on you, and you have no idea what kind of impact you're going to make on the people that you meet along the way that you wouldn't have otherwise. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we talk a lot about, even though we're a design podcast, we still talk a lot about entrepreneurship and pivoting and social media. And so it truly is amazing that you started your Pulp Riot journey on your phone, on Instagram, with little overhead, no employees. And I'm wondering, as you speak to people around the world now, and you're talking on this subject, are you still encouraging creative entrepreneurs to embrace the platform? Because it changes so much all the time. Like, how are you feeling about it now?
It changes, but it's the most powerful thing you've got. I like to think of people's social media page, whether you're a business owner or it's your career, as the most valuable piece of real estate you own. And, the things that I teach people how to become good Instagrammers, because it's not always very intuitive, and it's way beyond the scope of this podcast, but I want people to think about that the pictures you post are just merchandise that you're hanging inside your storefront, and you're trying to entice people to come inside and look at that merchandise and to either follow you or to buy something from you. And everything matters. The amount of people that follow you, your follower count is critical. Nobody wants to go into a store that's empty. By showing that you've got followers says that you're worth shopping in. And then learning how to have wonderful merchandise, the right content to post, the beautiful pictures, etc., is something that maybe is challenging for some, but it's worth the effort to figure out how to do it by taking classes, by using your friend Google to figure it out.
A big part of that Instagram following, though, was around education, correct?
Yeah, one thing is the power of one. That is you're utilizing your page to benefit yourself. But what I was obsessed with is the power of many. And that is to connect my circle of influence, my network, with other people's circle of influence, their network. And that's where my brand went into hyperdrive, because there are these other people that I recognized across the country who were doing what I was doing, and that is educating, inspiring, and creating trends in the beauty industry. And I just thought, well, what if I give them a call and figure out how to work together and create an education team together? Because then they're promoting me, I'm promoting them, and all of a sudden the follower account starts to get up, you start to become more known. And that's what's exciting. But most people are too consumed with themselves or feel like they're too competitive with other people in their industry, as opposed to being collaborative and working with others to help build each other up. That's where the power of many could put your brand into hyperdrive.
That is so smart.
I totally agree.
So smart.
How did you, what are some of your tips for engagement for that collaboration?
So it's surprising, but most people, your competitors, actually would welcome the call. All those people that I called were so excited to hear from me, because I was busy building my own personal brand as well. They knew who I was. So when the phone rang, they're like, oh, I'm so excited to connect my circle to you, just like I was to them, explaining the benefits of it. And so what we did was we actually created this education team. We would go on tour selling tickets, and they would be doing hair on stage. I would be motivating hairstylists from stage, and we'd just be going from city to city educating. And it was exciting, because what was I doing? I was meeting people across the country that would eventually become people who were buying products from me. And so I was able to just build this network across the country, because I humbled myself and I connected my circle to other people's circles. And it's not about, it's about benefiting each other.
I think when you give, it comes back tenfold.
Of course.
And I think that's what happened to you.
I think there's a funny thing that happens by helping others become successful. You become more successful. I've seen this happen time and time throughout my career.
And it's such a selfless thing, which is great.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. So you shared some images with us that we will put in our show notes on our website for people to look at, and you showed us some photos of your salon and your offices and your home, and you're like a rock star designer. Like, what the hell? Like, you're an econ major from UCLA. Where your brain was asleep for a while you were at school.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I've had the good fortune of being able to design a home, design a hair salon, design offices, and then design product packaging that created a revolution in the beauty industry. Design, to me, is my that's what I derive the most energy from. And one thing is to be able to package cool. And I have a gift for doing that. It's the idea that I could take something and make it irresistible to others. But that's not something that you really learn. I think that's something you're more born with. But what's more interesting to me than that are the challenges that design solves. For example, in my hair salon, I had to find a way to make the design appealing to the 19-year-old hairstylist and the 70-year-old clientele. How do you make that challenge work, or how to create product packaging that makes people feel something when they buy it. Because how many products have you bought in your life that actually make you feel good about yourself? And so that's the side of design that really excites me.
And oh, by the way, you and I use the same Pulp Riot blonde highlighter. Remember, we talked about this on Instagram. Yeah, so I am a user.
My hair is icy blonde, yes.
And mine is too. So I find that fascinating. I told you the story of my daughter, Riley. My other daughter, Emery, is an experiential graphic designer in Chicago, but she always has her eye on product packaging and product design because that's what she did in grad school. And so I don't know if people really realize the art and the skill behind product packaging and what it does to your merchandising.
Our listeners need to Google it, type in Pulp Riot and check out the amazing packaging and just have fun. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is, just so the audience knows, when you first came out on the stage at the hotel in Mexico, Alexis was on the stage with a prop. It was a mannequin head, and she was putting all the color on that as you were speaking. So it was so mesmerizing to watch that. And you do see the purple hair, the green hair, but it can be. There's always good and bad ways, and this is the good. This is the good stuff.
Yeah,
that's what's really exciting is that hair has become an art form. All of a sudden, they've got this new toolbox of colors, these purples, blues, and pinks, and it's becoming more and more socially acceptable to be a school teacher or working in a hospital or whatever with colorful hair. It's a great time to be in that industry. So with our packaging, what we inspire hairstylists to think of themselves as artists, not hairstylists.
And that is really what they are.
It is. And there's different
really
art forms. There's street art, there's tattoo art, there's hair art, etc. And by making them feel that, they feel good about themselves, and they start recognizing for themselves that they are indeed artists.
I see some sassy 80-year-olds with purple hair. I mean, they are rocking it. I mean, I think it makes them feel pretty cool.
There's a lot that come into our salon that do that, and I bow down to them. I think it's amazing.
Well, I'm thinking about my salon. Well, I'm into Salon Lofts now. Funny that you are in this concept, but prior, when I was in a bigger salon, and I'm thinking about it was like Nexus,
I don't even know
all the bottles that they all lined up. So boring. There was nothing that jumped out off the shelves to me to be like, what is that? So when you first started the product packaging for Pulp Riot, did you get any pushback, or were people immediately like, that is so cool, and embraced it?
We sent out promo boxes with 5 of our colors to 500 of the most influential stylists in the industry. Wow. And within 3 days, millions of people knew what our product was because they rushed to social media to show off the packaging. And then 2 days later, they would show images of models they did with our color. And so packaging can disrupt an industry, because before us, all the other color lines out there would have the same box for every single color. And they would just put a label on it that says blue or yellow or green. They didn't think of it as a product to inspire. They thought of it should go in a color cabinet and be hidden away somewhere. And for us, we thought we want it out on the color bar so everybody sees it and gets excited about it.
Yeah.
See, the power of design. I'm telling you, people.
Well, and what I love about this conversation is Joanne and I have found, after years and years and years, we've been in business 17 years, of going to conferences and being coached and yada, yada. We learn the most from people outside of our industry. I don't necessarily need to learn from the tippy top best, interior designer in the whole wide world. I can learn a whole lot more from somebody like you, or somebody in the food industry, or somebody, making luxury cars, of what they did, and then apply it to my business. It's just more, I don't know, it's refreshing. It's refreshing, yeah.
I totally agree with that. I think we all live in a little bit of a bubble, and I know it's uncomfortable, but once you get out of that bubble, and that's why I love traveling so much, just exposing yourself to other industries, other people. It's amazing what you absorb and how it starts to affect your process of thought, and I love it.
So Butterfly Loft is still in business. You're still going at that, right?
That's right. 12 years now.
Wow. And so I know you've done a lot of traveling lately. Like, what are your top 3 that you've been to lately that you really loved?
Well, this year has been a year of travel for us, and I was amazed by South Africa. I had
bucket list for me.
It totally exceeded my expectations. We took a surprise trip to Italy with no itinerary and just showed up and then worked our way around, which was really fun way of traveling. But perhaps the most exciting was I love Asia. It's my favorite place. And to be able to take our 2 daughters to Asia for the very first time, we took them to Thailand, and to see it through their eyes, the culture shock, the crazy things, the beauty, that was exciting. And in fact, they're already like trying to plan another trip to Asia with us. And we're like, that's not something you get to do every year.
Yeah. Oh, the education they're getting is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow. And that'll shape their lives and what they do and how they think about and how they interact with other people. And that's totally amazing. So is some of that travel going to come through in your book? Tell us about this book you're working on.
Yeah, so I'm working on a book that talks about my journey in much more depth. It's got scenes in it, so you feel like you were there right alongside me. It shares a lot of the lessons that I teach when I'm on stage, but a whole lot more lessons. It's essentially written for anybody who feels like they want to reach higher levels of success, who feel like they're as talented as their friends, but for some reason success has eluded them. You know, entrepreneurship is so hot right now. And it used to be, when you thought of an entrepreneur, that was somebody who went to business school, spent 5 years working for a McKinsey & Company, leaving that behind to start this brand with venture capital money, et cetera. But now it feels like anybody can be an entrepreneur. And they can do it with a cell phone and a little bit of talent. And I hope that this book speaks to them. It's maybe the first business book to ever make an impact that's going to have a lot of swearing in it. I want it to be able to relate to a different segment of people. So it's fun, it's casual, etc. I'm hoping that to release it at the beginning of 2023.
Is being on a TED Talk on the bucket list? Because I could totally see you doing a TED Talk.
Yep.
Well, thank you. I would absolutely love that. In fact, I want more and more speaking engagements. That, for me, I like to be right in front of people and watch, tear down some barriers for them. They'll see me get up on stage. And for people who are listening, what they don't know is that I've got a lot of tattoos on me. I may not look like the person that should be inspiring a room full of business leaders. And so I see them kind of sit back, fold their arms and say, who's this guy? And I love kind of breaking that down and at the end, making them feel like I've had some kind of impact on their lives. So I'm looking for more and more speaking opportunities outside of the beauty industry. And I'm hoping that the next year I'm able to go on a little tour of universities, speaking to students, because whenever I get off on stage, people grab me and they say, I wish my son or daughter was here to hear that. So I'm looking to go on maybe a little tour of colleges.
Oh, that's awesome. I
That's
love
awesome.
that idea.
Well, we're putting it out into the universe. I'm telling you, we're talking about it. So it's going to happen. Hopefully Adam Japko's listening and you can come speak at the Design Influencers Conference, which we go to every year. And maybe the chairman of SCAD in Atlanta is listening. So you can come over and see us and we can go out again.
Yeah.
I would absolutely welcome those opportunities.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So any plans for you to start another business, or is speaking and traveling and writing this book your gig for now?
One thing I want to confess is that I don't have life figured out.
I love that.
Yes. And in fact, I see a therapist. And when I talk to the therapist, I talk to her about creating another business. And it's really, I'm really in a state of limbo right now, which is not always the most comfortable place to be. Because I wonder sometimes if I want to create a new business only because to give me more meaning, to make me more relevant, because I romanticize the times of running a business. Sometimes I worry that if I'm starting a business, does that mean I'm failing at retiring? I've been given this gift of time and money, and shouldn't I be utilizing that to really enjoy life, whatever that means? And so I go back and forth on a daily basis on what I'm going to do next. But it's on the table, I'll say that.
I would think that going on a journey like you've been on and having the opportunity to have made a very large sum of money would be almost a little stressful. Like, what do I do now? I really can do anything, but what is anything? I've got like you said, the time and the money to do anything. And that's an opportunity that not a lot of people have. And I can imagine that being uncomfortable, as you say.
And you're soul searching. Like, then you go, well, I don't even, or if someone will say, I know your birthday's coming up. What do you want? When somebody asks me, I don't know. Like, if I could do anything right now, I'd have to really think about it. You're
not used to being in that position.
Right. You have to really ask yourself, what do I want?
Well, the first few months, you have so many options. It's like sitting in front of your television, flipping through channels, deciding what you're going to watch. That could go on all night long.
Yeah.
Too many options. And so you start to try to narrow it down, and you start to see maybe 3 or 4 doors in front of you, and you're going to enter one of those doors. Which one's it going to be? The truth is I'm young. I have the opportunity to open up all 4 of those doors at some point, and I probably will end up doing just that. What you think life's going to be like when you, as you're climbing the spiral staircase, when you reach that top step, is so different than when you actually do it. And I've learned an important lesson, and that is that you never reach the top step, and that you don't become all of a sudden satisfied. That you need to. It's the climb up the staircase that's the fulfilling part, not reaching the top step, looking around and realizing, oh, there's no other steps there. That is very unfulfilling, to be honest with you.
I totally hear you on that, and I agree. Yeah, Joanne and I talk a lot about when the adrenaline stops, then we need to look at each other and decide what we're going to do. But the fuel that we have from every new project and what we're doing is still really driving us forward. So we're not at the top of the staircase, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. And you're right. When the adrenaline's not there, when you're not excited to get up, the best thing you could possibly do is it's time to get on a different staircase.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, that is a great place to kind of end up and segue into our quotes that we end every podcast with. So, I'm going to do the funny quote because it reminds me of my talk with Riley this past week, because this is what I told her. Okay. Being an adult is so weird. I'm just unsupervised all the time. How unsafe. And that's from My Therapist Says on Instagram. I love My Therapist Says. You've got to follow them on Instagram.
Yeah, they've got some great quotes.
Yeah. But as I said to Riley, honey, you're 25. I helped you get into college. I helped you get into that sorority. I can't help you anymore. You're a big girl now.
You're unsupervised.
You're unsupervised.
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo. Off to California you go.
Okay. And so the serious quote is very interesting. It says, when you have momentum, swing for the fences. And that is from David Thurston.
Which is a topic that we did not talk about. So you'll have to just dig deeper into David or ask him to come speak at an event to hear more about swinging for the fences. Yeah.
Okay, so people can find you. They can look at Pulp Riot. Your website is David Thurston Official?
Yes. And my Instagram is also David Thurston Official.
Okay, and you're on LinkedIn. Yeah. Check it out, people. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, I could just talk with you forever. So I hope you do a book tour in Atlanta so we can see you again. Or maybe I'll be out visiting Riley in California because she finally made it, and I'll come knock on your door.
Well, when you do, I'll have a great dinner ready for you.
Yes.
David, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, I feel so fortunate that we were in that place at that time to listen to you, because we've gotten a lot from it, and we are so excited that we're able to let our listeners know about it too, because they probably would never.
Yep.
Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for the opportunity. And to all your listeners out there, I wish you the very best on your journeys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much,
Thanks for
David.
listening, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks to Cosentino for sponsoring, and we hope you will rate and review our podcast and keep sharing with friends.
Thanks everybody. Bye.
Join Joanne and Kelly weekly for a lively conversation about trends, travels to industry events, current design projects, the good, the bad, and the ugly, do's and don'ts, product recommendations, and more. Be sure to follow the fun on Facebook. They're on Instagram at Kandrac Kole, and of course, you've got to visit them online at kandrac-kole.com for more information.